So, hi Chaitanya, good evening. How are you?
Yeah, hi, Manish. I'm good. How about you?
I'm good too. Okay, so let's start the interview process, and I will just give a one or two line about me. I have been managing this DevOps department here in my current organization for last 8 years, and we are mostly using the cloud, like the DevOps skill sets, what is the trending in the market, and whatever the skill set you might have heard, the all the things we are using, like we are using this Argo CD, we are using the GitHub Actions, we are using Jenkins. We are using this AWS Cloud, GCP, Terraform, or Docker, Kubernetes, everything, correct? And APM tools also we are using for the monitoring purpose. Like all these tools and technology we are using for our current roles and responsibility. So yeah, let's go ahead with your introduction, and then we will start with the questions.
Okay, Manish. My name is Chaitanya. I have been into the DevOps culture and DevOps practice from past five years. I have been started my career as a system administrator, then have been rapidly moved from the Linux on-premises servers to the AWS cloud, and I was the first. The AWS cloud was new to me. Then I have been learned, and then I've been switched into AWS, and currently I am holding two infrastructures. You can say that AWS in one of the project and Azure from another project. AWS is like enterprise level tools we are using, the separate ones, you can say. Yeah, not as like Azure, where Azure DevOps provides all the plugins and everything at once, like Azure boards everything integrations as the DevOps needs. But in one of the project we use the normal Java applications to deploy, starting from GitHub, like Maven, SonarQube, Trivi, Docker, Kubernetes deployments. Like we have the EKS clusters from AWS for deployments. Like we deploy into the AKS cluster, and for one of the cloud, like I have said you, the other project which is on Azure, we have the AKS into the picture. Then we have like in day to day my applications, like I have been using several DevOps tools, starting
Okay.
from GitHub. I have mentioned like Jenkins, Docker, Kubernetes, Terraform, and SonarQube, Maven. For all these CI/CD pipelines we are building into the Azure DevOps also.
Okay.
Mostly I would work on Jira tickets, like which is P1 and P2 level kind of thing, related to Kubernetes clusters and everything, and build failures which the developer needs any help out of it, like I would do it. And we have four environments in the AWS cloud, like dev, QA, staging, and prod. Like staging is completely similar to the prod environment, where the testing happens before the deployments come to the prod. And we follow agile methodologies for the deployment. We have 2 week sprints which need to be triggered, like 15 days production lifecycle we have into the cloud. And yeah, so the
Yeah.
so
Okay.
majorly
So as you mentioned, two clouds you have worked, the AWS and the Azure. So what all
Azure.
services have you used in AWS cloud?
So mostly the familiar services, Azure and AWS, like most the names are a little bit changed,
Yeah.
but most of them are like compute services, storage services, network services, and the this automations you will use CLI, AWS CLI kind of thing, and monitoring for one of the projects. Like in my 5 years, I have been working on multiple projects. Like one of the projects we use CloudWatch kind of thing, and like coming to the Azure, same here, where the network storage and the storaging services and all those things. And we use the ADO, like Azure DevOps organization, to have all those things at once, like coming to the Azure boards, build CI/CD pipelines, and the build pipeline, deployment pipeline, artifacts, testing, and all those things, where we deploy in the cloud also, like Azure cloud. Yeah,
Okay, so you
most
talked
of the other
about
stuff.
one of the storage service that you are using, correct? So I'm hoping that you have used the AWS S3 buckets as well for the
Yeah,
storage
it's three
actually.
buckets. Yeah.
So if I have to do the cross account connection between the S3, correct? So I do have these
Yeah.
two S3 buckets in two different AWS account, and I have to establish the communication between these. So how will you do?
Yeah, see, one of the project, like we have this thing where I have mentioned earlier also, where the dev environment is one of the dev QA environments I have mentioned, right? So a dev
Mhm.
environment for one of the project is one of the account, and other QA environment is on the other account. So like we can have these IAM policies into the picture, and we can have the ARN for, like every bucket will have a ARN, and with the policies, IAM policies, you can to take the ARN number, and you can have the cross account permissions over there, so that the one account can use the permissions of the policies. With the policies, he can use the bucket of the other account B kind of thing. You can have this
Yeah,
communication.
okay, that's true. So, what do you understand by this CloudWatch alarms and CloudWatch events that you mentioned? CloudWatch, correct?
Yeah, like CloudWatch alarms, like CloudWatch alarms is nothing but the alerts which you configure. Like CPU utilization or memory utilization is more on the EC2 instance. Like it would trigger an alerts to your Gmails or whatever it may be, which you integrate, Slack notifications or Teams notifications where you integrate. It will send a notification. But cloud events is nothing but I'm like, it is also one kind of that thing, but I'm not 100% sure about my answer. Events is nothing but it would trigger when there is a spikes, I guess, like events kind of thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
cloud
that's
trail events, like events kind of thing where.
yeah, that's true. It's kind of trigger like just like the Lambda function if you have worked. So if you have
Mm,
to do any kind of event notification, like based on certain events, some happens. So based on the some CloudWatch events, it will trigger another function and that will work. So have
yeah,
you worked with the EC2 instances as well?
yeah, EC2 instance as well, and the compute
Okay.
part.
So if I have to connect this EC2 instance to a S3 bucket, and I don't want to use this internet gateway, even I don't have the access to create any net. So how
Mm.
can I establish the communication between the EC2 to S3?
Means it, you are saying the network should not cross through the VPC. You are saying out of
Yes.
VPC. You are saying.
Yes.
So like so the two things which you have to do is like first thing you create a role, because EC2 instance need to access to the S3, because that is the different service. This is the different service. This comes under compute service. This comes under S3, comes under the storage service. So the role needs to be done to have the communication between that two services. Then you need a VPC endpoint to so that your the network should not cross your VPC. That is the major thing that we can have. VPC endpoint you can have.
Yeah, that's true. So just suppose I have deployed my front-end application on my EC2 instance. That is your public EC2 instance. And at particular time, you are saying that there is a spike in the traffic. And due to that, my server is like responding very slow. And I have to manage this, like I have to handle this particular problem. So what all best solutions we can provide?
So like say when there is a CPU hike or any kind of thing, so like you can do, there are many things we can do. The first thing is like you have to observe like one after 1 week. See, you have to continuously observe at a week, like what are the spikes which you get. So that needs to be documented first. So you can go for scaling kind of thing, auto scaling, like vertical scaling you can do. Like is easy to instant is there, like T2 X large is there. Go for T2 2X large or
So
3X large
what are the
kind of thing.
different scaling policies that we can implement?
Scaling policies you can implement is like that is what like scaling policies means like you are
Yeah,
talking about IAM policies.
you mentioned about auto scaling groups, correct? That's what,
Yeah, yeah,
if I'm
yeah,
right,
yeah,
correct? That you,
yeah,
with
yeah.
the help of auto scaling group, you can scale down the number of instances based on the requirement, the
Based on the requirements.
how your CPU is behaving, how your memory or
Yeah,
the number of requests is behaving.
yeah,
So,
yes, yes.
what kind of different kind of scaling you can do? Like whenever your CPU gets like just suppose that there is a scenario that your CPU has been utilized up to 80%. So are you
Mm.
going to scale it up to 10 number of servers or 20 number of servers? So if you just suppose that you have added a policy where your scaling happens up to 10 number of servers. What if my
Mm.
CPU comes back up to 20%? Will it get scaled down or how your policy will behave?
Yeah, so that is what like auto scaling. Like before that, you create a template. In the template, you can mention that minimum, maximum days and number of nodes. Nodes is nothing but your instance. So that if there is a speak, if it is more than 80%, you take up your instance up to two. If there is no spikes or any like that, you can take down the EC2 instance based on the auto scaling groups. In this auto scaling group template, if you do like first is the template you provision, so in the tablet, you mention all these configuration which is
Okay,
there.
what do you understand by cooldown period in auto scaling group?
See, cooldown period is nothing but like see, I'm not 100% sure about this answer, but what I'm guessing is like cooldown period means um like when there is like you can say the instance which is there is a period which is like you can say that after the spikes of 80% in one of the event,
Hmm.
the cooling period is there, like 10 like 15 minutes it will see. If that 15 minutes there is no spike means, then again it will be scaled down. If that 15 minutes which is there, the event which is there. So suppose like if for now like for now
So,
it is like
will it
the
is
period which
like,
is
yeah. So, if you have implemented this auto scaling group and your system says that 50%, sorry, 80% of utilization of CPU has been done, correct? It's more than 80%. So, will it scale immediately, or will it wait for 15 minutes
that is
and
what
then will it scale?
that is what like it will wait for 15 minutes, then it will scale. 15 minutes it will see in the 15 minutes continuously it is like the spike is there, then
Okay.
only it will scale. That is cooling period. Yeah.
Okay. So, just one simple more question on the EC2 instance. So, can we change the private IP address of the running EC2 instance?
Private IP of the running instance cannot, you cannot do it.
Can you change it after stopping the instance?
No, you cannot do it because it is configured to VPC. Like VPC will give you the private address, so you cannot do it.
Okay, so if I have to assign a permanent public IP address to my server, so is there any way to assign that?
Yeah, you can have the elastic IP into the place. You can sign it to this so that when it turn off and turn on, the IP remains the same.
Okay, so now just suppose that I have an application, correct, which is deployed on the EC2 instance, you can say. And I have to do the routing like on this particular website, you can think of like chaitanya.com, and I have to do like after the chaitanya.com, if I'm pointing to slash profile, Chaitanya's profile should look there, correct? If I am doing
Hmm.
slash order or slash code, it can be your e-commerce application. So which kind of setup you can do for this? Or like which kind
So
of
like
AWS
yeah,
S3
so
services
like
you will use?
yeah, you can have the ALB into the picture where path it will provide the path based routing where it will point the path, like suppose slash Chaitanya so slash admin is there. You can point out to that endpoint, and if the slash something is like slash Manish is there, it will point based on the path based routing in ALB. You can configure those things.
Okay, have you worked with the Lambda function as well?
Lambda functions current projects I'm working, but I'm learning, like I'm going depth into Python. So yeah,
Okay. So what are the backend services for the Lambda function?
backend for functions for I'm not that much expertise into that.
Okay, no issue. So have you worked with the secret manager as well, the AWS secret manager?
Yeah, SSM, yeah.
So if I have to store any credential, correct? I have deployed one application on Kubernetes, you can say EKS.
Mm,
I have to
mm.
store some credentials. So in which scenario I should use the AWS secret manager or the Kubernetes secret?
So generally in our project, like we use SSM only for storing these Kubernetes secrets. We don't store on our local. So like yeah, CSN driver, which is responsible for like to store the secrets and the Kubernetes like secrets.
Mhm.
Like you can point to the environment variables and you can call that environment variables whenever required in your cluster.
Okay. Let's move towards the Docker. Have you worked with the Docker as well?
Yeah.
Can we delete the image out of which my container is running?
No, like this because the container is like live. See, container is live out of image. You will make when you run a container, the image will get live. So you cannot delete the image when the container is running.
Is there any way to delete or we cannot delete?
Yeah, we can. You can delete. See, force delete kind of thing you can apply.
Okay, so if you delete the image and your container was running, so will it be continue to running or it will get deleted?
No, it will be stopped. It will be deleted. It will be
Okay,
deleted.
so the moment you will delete the image, your container will be like,
Container will,
yeah, it
yes,
will stop running.
it
That's
will
what
be
you're saying.
stopped running. The yeah,
Okay, generally it does not
because
happen.
all yeah, what
Your container keeps running, even though your image is deleted forcefully. But yeah, once
okay.
you stop the container in between, it will not be live again because your image is no more, correct? So
Okay. Like
yeah,
okay.
yeah, that's the way. So, what do you understand by this mutability and immutability in Docker? Like while you are pushing your images to the ECR, correct? ECR or any of the registry. So,
Hmm.
what is the immutability or mutability?
Immutability. I'm not aware of this. Like maybe I have heard, but I I have not like this is the correct answer. I don't. I'm not much like immutability and immutable things. I have been on the Terraform side, but in the Docker, I'm hearing for the first time.
Yeah, the words are similar wherever you might have used. The words are similar. The meaning is similar. The mutable and
Mm.
immutable. Yeah. Okay, no issue. So, what are the different types of networking which are available in the Docker, and which one is the default one?
Okay. So like, see, I'm not aware of the networking, all networkings which the Docker consists of,
Mm-hmm.
but generally, like Docker uses the bridge network to communicate between these containers, kind of thing. Yeah. So like, bridge network is responsible for those communication which happens between the containers or this thing. Yeah. Other networking, I'm not aware of that.
Okay. So now I have one application which is running on the EKS. It's deployed on the EKS, correct? And I have to expose this application to the outer world, to the internet, you can say. So what kind of all setup you will do, and what all AWS services will you include, and how your deployment will happen on this Kubernetes side? Like what all components are you going to use?
So like mostly the you can say like the load balancer. So see when generally in our projects like we use the like ingress load balancer where so to deploy the services where we have the multiple domains which is configured in the YAML ingress resources file where it will when we apply that YAML file it will create a network load balancer in the AWS cloud. So like we can have that like we can configure that into route 53 services and we can expose the services like the traffic which is driving like it is coming into the cluster first it would touch the ingress load balancer then it will be diverted to the services and from the services it is diverted to the deployment files where your containers or pods are running.
Okay. What are the different types of services which are available?
In Kubernetes.
Yes.
In Kubernetes, we have four services, you can say cluster IP, load balancer, like the load balancer or node group,
Okay.
and the headless services.
Okay, so I have two pods which are running in the different namespaces. You can say the test namespace and the dev namespace, correct? And I have to establish the communication between these two pods. So what
Yeah.
kind of setup I can do, or
So
how will
like
you establish? Yeah.
yeah, so like generally what happens, when we use the COPS cluster in the production environment, like when the COPS cluster is provisioned, the default all the pods will be communicating with each other. If there is any communication which doesn't happens for the front end or back end, we configure the network policies to make the communication between both pods.
Okay.
Generally, that will not
What
happen
is
because the default
what is
communication will be established.
what is the syntax for establishing the communication? Like by it's going to have the default communication between the different namespaces, correct? You mentioned this cluster IP. That's your service type
Yeah.
for the default communication.
Mm.
So what is the particular syntax to like enable this particular default communication even?
I'm not that much aware of this syntax,
Okay.
but generally kubectl commands only. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, you have mentioned five number of pods should run against a deployment, correct? You have deployed one application or any of the microservices you have deployed, and you want that five number of pods should run against this particular deployment. And you see that only three number of replicas are running, correct? Rest two are not running, or it's not actually up. The pods are not. So, which component of the Kubernetes will take care of this, and how this flow will go?
Mm-hmm. Okay, like when there are only five replicas that are mentioned, but three are running, but two are not running. How
Yes.
the communication will go? So generally, they see like the first thing is like when there are four, three or five, three are running and five. This information will be gathered by kubelet in the worker node, and so the kubelet will talk to the API server And from the API server only, from the API server, the instruction go to the kube scheduler, and the kube scheduler is responsible to select the particular node for each pod. So that is the from the kubelative is responsible for all these things, like to gather the information on the each node, what is what happens.
Okay. What is the use of RBAC in Kubernetes?
So if you want to have fine grain authentication authorization for the users, or for the users generally, you will use RBAC policy, like RBAC things for in Kubernetes, role based access controllers.
Okay. If I have to store some sensitive information, I do have
Hmm.
this option to store it in the secret, correct? It's base64 encoded. But at the same time, I have the option to store it in the config map as well. I will encrypt this particular message or the particular value, whatever I have, and then I can put it in the config map. Why should I choose the secret as well? Sorry, secret only, not the config map for sensitive values.
Hmm. So generally, like secrets, so generally, see the Kubernetes point of view, it is like see secrets are like the sensitive information. Generally, what passwords and everything that will be stored in the secrets, so that the Kubernetes will understand that it is a secrets which should be like we should provide the extra security to the secrets. Kubernetes understand that, and will pay it will have the it will have more security aspects on the secrets. You can have that, but that is not the secured way. Config maps is not security way. Like you should username is okay, but password is not okay. Like if you want the extra layer of protection, generally go for the secrets.
Have you worked with the GitHub Actions as well?
No, no, I'm not working. Not working.
Jenkins?
Jenkins have been working.
Okay, so what is multi-branch pipeline in Jenkins?
So multi pipeline branches and puggling, like uh yeah, so like uh yeah, trick you can have the triggers based on the different actions, you can say. Like if there is any push happens by the developer, generally the commit will happen, and the branch will be triggered. This happens like when there is the communication between the GitHub or the private registry to the Jenkins. Generally this communication will happens like we configure the webhooks in the
Yeah,
GitHub so that the
correct.
communication will happen. So yeah, this is the general scenario where we have the multiple pipeline.
How do you store your credentials in Jenkins? Like I have to pass the API key or the API token for running my pipelines, and I have to store it. So how will you store? Will you are you going to put
See,
this in Jenkins pipeline or how will you? Yeah.
yeah, like you can have the managed Jenkins. Like when you go for in the dashboard, you have managed Jenkins, where you can store the global credentials. Where you have the global credentials. In the global credentials, you can store has the environment variables, and you can call that environment variables in the pipeline.
Okay. So yeah, just suppose that I have to provision two kind of infrastructure. One as a primary and second one is a secondary. For the AWS
Okay.
cloud you can think of, correct? I have to run this Jenkins pipeline, but there is just some condition what I have to enable. Like if if I have to deploy the secondary infrastructure, then only my pipeline should get executed for the secondary infrastructure, otherwise not, correct? So how will you define this condition kind of thing, or how will you ensure that your pipeline runs for the secondary infrastructure provisioning?
Okay. So you can say in Jenkins or Terraform.
Jenkins.
So, like in Jenkins, you have choice parameters where you can have like you can configure the values. So, in the choice parameters, you can have, and you in the build options, you can choose that choice parameter, and you can apply that Jenkins file to that, or any file or any scripting, anything.
Okay. What will you do to clean up the temporary files, like while you are executing your Jenkins pipeline, correct? Some of the temporary files will be created, like you are doing some git clone kind of thing from a particular repository. Some of the temporary file will get created during the execution, and you have to clean up the workspace. Every time Jenkins
Hmm.
run, there is just some workspace which gets created, and some files are being created temporarily, correct? How will you do the cleanup of this temporary file? which have been created, and those temporary files are of no use, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So like we can have the bash scripting and cron tab into the play into the place, so that every time, like every night or anything, like by cron syntax, you can give the you can have the bash scripting, and which start with cbang, and you can give the directory, and you can give the Linux command, so that the cron tab which you when which you put in that cron tab e in the syntax, that every week, like every day on that time, it would go into the directory, and it would execute the shell script, so that every things like every
Okay.
uh,
Your Jenkins agent, like the Jenkins agent which are running to run your different pipelines, and it's facing some storage related issue that space has been filled, correct? So a space full, that issue you might have encountered. So how do you fix this space full issue, disk storage full?
okay. So like you can, that is what in the bash scripting you can do, that is the first thing. uh, the cron tab, this is also helpful for that. So otherwise you can have, the first thing is like, suppose a person comes and the storage is full. So first thing which I do is, from the console I modify the volume. So I would bring up the volume, the modify the volume. You can upgrade the volume anytime, like 20 GB is there, I can modify into 40 GB or kind of thing. First thing I would do, because the job has to run, because jobs will stop. The first thing I would do. Second thing is, after the projects and after after everything is done, our developer works and everything it cools down.
So
After
will
that,
it,
like,
yeah, just a cross question. So will it work once you change the volume? You just change the value, so value of the volume, correct? 10 to
yeah,
20.
yeah,
So will it get implemented or you need to do something?
on the console you can directly change the volume, but downgrade cannot be happen, like upgrade only can happen.
Yeah, you just change from 10 to 20, correct? That's what you made the
Yeah,
configuration.
yeah.
Will it get implemented and you will have the free space on the running server or you need to do something?
You like, after changing the volume, you can have the free space. Generally, like LSBK, you can, volume should be mounted kind of thing, you have to do then after that.
Okay. You have worked with the Terraform as well, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
So how do you see the data resource in the Terraform?
Yeah, data block is like, you if you suppose, if there are any information related to the resources on the AWS console, if you want to get into your main.tf file, you can use the data block.
So if I'm using passwords, correct? And that I need to
Mm.
print on the console side. How can I print those value?
So like you can use the output variable. I'm not sure, but uh, output you can have that output into the picture, like output block you can mention. And second thing is, like, if the passwords are very sensitive, like sensitive equal to true, if you mark, Terraform will take space that password is
Yeah,
like these are the passwords and everything.
sensitive and non-sensitive, that kind of information.
Sensitive equal to
Okay. So how do you pass the output from one module to another module in the Terraform?
true. Mhm. You can pass like out output block you can mention, like two outputs you can have that in the terminal. You can print the material, like, if there is any elastic IP or VPC ID, if you want, like you can print using output block.
Yeah, you can print using the output block, but how will you like? I have two modules, correct? That I am need to run. I have one module for the VPC. I have another module for the EC2 instance creation.
Mm.
Both the modules will be executed at the same time because you are running the pipeline from like it's all the codes are in the main branch, correct? Your pipeline will
Okay.
start running from the main branch. Both the modules will be called at the same time. It's the within the one file, correct? How will you ensure
Okay.
that
So like,
once first VPC is get created,
yeah.
then VPC ID will be picked up and it will be passed to the second EC2 module?
See, two things you can have, like, depends on block you can mention, so that the VPC is created first and the EC2 is
Correct.
created next. And second thing is, like, you can mention the subnet ID, so that in that subnet, the EC2 instance will be created. You
Yeah,
can take the subnet, these thing, and into the second one.
yeah. But subnet ID also you will mention once VPC is created, correct? So yeah, depends on block will
You
be
you
there.
you cannot mention directly, but subnet resource name dot id, if you mention like, on the top, what is the subnet is created, that will be taken by the EC2 instance. Like subnet dot, like, you don't require the this thing, but
Got it.
resource you can mention.
Yeah, the pattern you were talking about, correct. I got it.
Mm.
The pattern of the name, like
Pattern of the name. Yeah, yeah. That
pattern
is
of
what
the
you are
name,
saying.
not the actual name. Yeah, that's the
That's
same
what.
way. It's module dot output, that particular syntax you will use to pass the runtime value from one module to another module. Okay, so how will you troubleshoot any of the application which is running in a pod, like the container is running, correct? And you face this
Mm.
403 and 401 error. So what do you understand by 403 and 401, and how will you troubleshoot this?
See, generally 403 and 401 errors are like little bit like pages. There is issue with the pages, or you can say like 403 are mm, like issue with the HTTPS endpoints. You can say the page is not up, or you can say the errors with the servers. So generally, the five not errors are related to services, but 443 is related to your pages kind of thing. So generally, what happens, you have to identify like kubectl commands. You can have the kubectl commands into the picture, kubectl get pods kind of thing, which are the pending states, and after that you have to describe by using kubectl describe and the pod and pod deployment icon slash pod name or deployment name. That will give you some idea, and the events, like in the event section, it will give you some
Yeah,
ideas like
got it.
if there is any
Okay. Yeah, yeah, got
issues
it.
with you
So,
can also use logs.
yeah, I have deployed one application, correct, out of which my pod, like once your pod will start terminating, the second pod will come up if you are using the rolling update strategy, correct.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
have
yeah.
to monitor the status of the kubectl pod, correct? Kubectl get pods and then namespace, whatever the command you will execute according to
Mm.
namespace. I have to monitor the status. I have just run my pipeline. Pipeline is successful. I have to monitor. So, which particular command can you use to monitor?
Okay. Like kubectl get pods kind of command, you say
Yeah,
you
yeah.
should you
I
can
have
use.
to use the kubectl get pods. Like once you do the
Okay.
kubectl get pods and you will pass the name space, you will see the five number of pods which are running, correct? Against any
Mm.
deployment, correct? But you will have to run it again. Like once you run this particular command kubectl get pods, correct? You will see the status message as it's getting initiating, correct? Then you will see
Initiating,
it's
yeah.
it's pending or terminating, whatever the state. I have to continuously check the monitor the status. I don't want
Yeah,
to
watch you can have.
yeah, that's what
Watch command. Yeah,
yeah, that's
watch
what I want.
kubectl get pods.
Yeah.
You
What do you,
take the terminal, like
yeah,
terminal,
yeah.
you take the new terminal and you can have that.
So what is the meaning of ch own command?
Ch own command is like changing the ownership of the particular file. Suppose it is Chaitanya, I can change it to Manish.
Yeah. How will you troubleshoot any disk space related issues on the server, the Linux server?
Oh yeah, so like disk space generally, like if there is any disk space kind of thing, when there is spikes of that, so generally we need to like check the df-h commands in the like df-h commands, which the directory is taking more space kind of thing, and you have to delete all those files. You can automate these things by using Jenkins also, via scripting,
Yeah,
where
got it.
you have that.
So what do you
And you have
understand?
to clear the cache. Cache is most important because many of the servers have cache. You can
Yeah,
clear the cache also.
okay. So have you heard about this continuous delivery and continuous deployment?
I heard, but yeah, continuous deployment is like, yeah,
So
continuous delivery and continuous.
what is the difference between these two?
I'm not 100% sure about these two. Continuous deployment is deploying to the images to these things, or delivery. I'm not 100% sure about this. See,
Okay. So if I have to deploy 10 number of microservices in Kubernetes, but out of 10 I have to keep the 7 in it, like I have to I have to separate the communication between these 7 and 3, correct? I have to segregate 10 deployments between 7 and 3. So how will you do the segregation?
okay, so like yeah, like you can have the namespaces into the picture so that you can segregate these things.
Yeah, that's true. So have you worked with AWS RDS as well?
RDS, yeah, like installations I have done, but mostly troubleshooting part or these things. small things are done because DB team is separate in our organization where these things will schemas and everything like they will
Okay.
take care of.
So have you faced any challenge working as a DevOps engineer, and what kind of learning you have received out of that? The major
Yeah,
challenges.
so like, see, major challenges is more on the Kubernetes side. So where the pods gets terminated, why, what is the reason? Because and major on the Kubernetes sides like image pullback errors or pods go to into pending state. The CPU limits and
Yeah,
requests
yeah.
are more
Okay.
more major challenges on the Kubernetes sites. And coming to the Jenkins, suppose like most of the challenges are from Jenkins also. Like builds will not happen because Java JDK environments are 8. The developer is working on 11. These type of errors, and most of the environment variables are not configured. Most of the challenges on Jenkins also. Most of the builds issues and this
Yeah.
troubleshooting of the pods will take more
Got it.
time.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Chaitanya. So
Thank you,
thanks
Manish.
for the